Let's compare a Korbanth K4 to a Roman Props MK1. So these are two Obi-Wan Kenobi original trilogy inspired lightsabers, and they're made by different companies. So one thing to know right off the bat regarding the Roman Props one is that this was inspired directly, by the parts that were used to make the lightsaber. So Roman Props actually sourced, the original pieces and meticulously based their components on those original pieces from kind of the hilt. So there's a nice little story about that on his website, actually, so feel free to check that out if you want. Now, this is the weathered version of the hilt, by the way, so some of the details in the finish will be a little bit different, with this Roman Props one versus the K4 by Korbanth, so just, keep that part of it in mind, too. Now let's start at the top. So both of these hilts in the emitter section, they're actually weathered. Now, the weathering on the K4 is a little more kind of uniform, so it sort of has this tarnished look to it, but they're kind of these lines, so the weathering was probably done with a lathe, and it's somewhat uniform throughout. It's sort of the saber forge style of weathering, it looks like, where you kind of get the tarnished silver look to it. And then the weathering on this MK1 over here, there's a few different kind of little patches of it, where you can see a little bit of, like right here is sort of a big patch of kind of the metallic silver peeking through. So it's a little more, uneven and, arguably realistic in the way that it's weathered. Now if we look at the top, here's what the top looks like. So they both kind of have, the holes around here in the emitter section. The K4 still has sort of the weathering on the top of the emitter area, and the MK1 does not. And this part in the emitter section, though, with the holes, that does have some weathering to it. It's a little bit dark, whereas over here with the K4, it's not. Okay, now if we go to the neck, so, there is definitely some weathering on the neck of the MK1. And it's a lot shinier, a lot more of a shiny finish, to the K4 too, kind of in this goldish brass colored area. Now moving down here to this piece on the neck, this is just still sort of this brass color, whereas on the MK1, it's actually sort of a black or a tarnished black. Over here, same thing, it's a dark color on the MK1, and it's still kind of this brighter color for the K4. Now we get to sort of the grenade grip section, and it's a much shinier finish, much shinier kind of black. Oh, sorry. If you get these type of hilts, sometimes you would need to sort of glue this piece in place. But anyway, yeah, the finish over here, it's sort of a shinier black finish, whereas with the MK1, it's much more muted, and it's still, it has the weathering element to it as well. Moving down the hilt more, okay, so here we see there are buttons. So on this K4, these are actual functional buttons, and on MK1, these are not functional, they're sort of decorative, but they also have some nice weathering to them. And you can see that it actually says Graflex, so this is a replica sort of Graflex clamp over here. And on the K4, it still has sort of the design, so it has these like four little grooves, up here and here, but it doesn't have the Graflex writing on it. Moving over here, so there's an extra screw on this one. They both kind of have these, what do you call these, like rectangular areas. And then they also both have this clip type of thing here, and they look pretty much the same. There's a little bit more of a gap, it looks like, right here on the MK1 versus the K4. And the bubble strip area is pretty much the same. And then on this other side, a little bit different. This seems a little deeper, maybe, a little different, this sort of hole on the side of the activation box. And then, yeah, moving down here, A lot of this is quite similar. Toward the bottom, this sort of gear section, this lower grip sort of gear section of the lightsaber hilt. Although, there's the weathering on this version, and it's still kind of the shinier finish. It does seem to be a little bit wider, the top of these sort of gear teeth seems a little bit wider on the K4. And then moving down to the pommel. So, well, you can actually see the pommel. The pommel design's quite different. So it's overall the same design, but the face on the sides right here of the K4, it's much larger. So you can see a little bit of the difference there. Now they both have a D-ring, I just haven't put the D-ring on the MK1. And then this pommel is vented, for the K4 as well, because this hilt is designed to accommodate an install. And this version of the MK1 by Roman Props, actually, this is just a static hilt, so it's not designed for an install at all. But they do also offer what they call an FX, ready hilt. So, they offer a different style there too. Anyway, that's just sort of a quick overview of these two Obi-Wan Kenobi style hilts. One of them is the K4 over here. That's by Korbanth. And then the other one over here, if I can just kind of keep the emitter section up there. Maybe not. This is a Roman Props MK1. And yeah, sometimes you do need to glue that emitter section. But just a little quick comparison for you. And they are very different. And, they're just made by different companies. So there you go.